Hi everybody and welcome back to the Renewables Podcast. Thanks very much for coming back. Before we start this podcast, please go over and like and subscribe and all of that jazz to help the podcast grow. And also review it if you've watched episodes before or you like this episode that we're about to record and you're about to listen to or watch now. Why not give us a review? And that will help us get out to more people and hopefully spread the word about renewables. But before we get into today's topic, how are you doing, Mark?
I'm really good. I'm glad to be here chatting with you again, and we've got a juicy one to get into. It's one that I think bothers a lot of us as installers, so we're going to nail a few ribbons to the mast, I think, around a particular topic. But yeah, really well, busy in the day job, feeling healthy, so that's what it's all about. How about yourself?
Very good, very good. Looking forward to this one. We're going to be talking about the selling and potentially mis-selling of all renewable stuff, solar, batteries, air source heat pumps, all that sort of stuff. Because like any kind of gold rush, I'm doing the little like sarcastic marks there for anyone not watching, industry, like the whole double glazing, which tends to be quoted quite a lot. There are the companies out there that want to do things genuinely and sell a good job, and then the ones that are there to make the money whilst the demand is there. And neither are incorrect, and neither are, the wrong way to do it, but it depends on the kind of moral compass around some of that selling and the information that's offered to customers. But what have you seen then, Mark, in terms of out there that is a little bit sketchy around the selling of these systems?
What led me to try and want to talk about this was seeing your posts the last week or so from some of your frustrations, but I've seen examples of customers having door-to-door salespeople kind of coming around and telling them that they're solar panels and inverters are now so old that they're dangerous and they're a fire risk. And I think even one of them got told that their solar panels aren't compatible with modern inverters and would need to be swapped for newer ones, which was just crazy. And this was an elderly lady. She'd got in touch with us because she was worried about a system, thought that it was going to set on fire. So there's kind of those pressure sales that go on, and I assume they just work from the feed-in tariff register probably of addresses and go door-to-door or telesales trying to drum up business. So there's the kind of moral and ethical question around that. But if ultimately what they're telling people is a pack of lies, that should be exposed and consumers made aware of it being absolute nonsense.
Yeah, and I've had that as well. I've had companies that ring us up as a local company to this area, or they've maybe seen bits online or whatever, and they want to just kind of find out if because they just smelt something not quite right about it. But every one that we hear about, and you included, and other installers probably listening and watching this, I wonder how many hundreds of people just take it as read that, yeah, I need to do this, otherwise my system's dangerous, and actually get the work done. You kind of think when you hear customers kind of tell you about this situation that they're in and that they've been proposed changing their full system because the warranty's finished on their inverter, you kind of think, how does anyone fall for this? But actually, for people that aren't in the know for that kind of industry, like what we are, and probably most people watching this are, it can be a really scary thing for someone to ring you up and say, look, we've been past your details, we can see your inverter's now out of warranty, we really want to come and change it. They probably have a better sales pattern than me, because it doesn't feel very natural talking like that to me, but they get the phone call out of the blue to say that basically the system's dangerous or it's going to not work for very much longer. They maybe like seeing that feed-in tariff income come in, and so want to be proactive and try and replace that. Whilst there isn't necessarily anything wrong with that, it's the way that it's been sold, and depending if the system that they've been sold is actually fit for purpose for their property as well, because there's quite a lot of just box moving in this industry, in the solar market anyway, and probably quite similar in the heat pump market. But yeah, we've had that, and it is not nice to hear that companies are doing it. But I don't know how they actually get these customers' details, because surely the whole MCS side of things it's not a public register.
No, I don't know whether they're doing local research or they literally just jump out of the van or the car and start walking around looking for solar panels. I don't know quite how that works, but yeah, it's one of those where I don't think there's any real reason they could determine a system's unsafe just from looking at it from outside. It's like you have to get your test instruments out, don't you, and have a proper measurement and see what's going on before you decide something along those lines. It is scare tactics, it's pressure sales. There's other examples we've had of just selling new solar systems going door to door. And there was a lady who we went out to see who'd signed up to a contract in her home that she felt pressured to sign. This salesperson wouldn't leave her house really until he'd got a signature on the contract. And even then, when she tried to get out of it, thinking you've got your 14 days period to cancel the order and such, I think she just got to that much at the end of her tether. She said, I'll just sign it and then I'll cancel it later. And had a right hoo-ha in trying to do that. And I think it very much is, maybe it's harsh on double glazing salespeople, but it traces back to that same mentality, I think, that it's all about commission, all about getting a sale, and you bend the truth and tell some big fat lies as well, just to get that money on the board.
Yeah, and the issue is that if this sort of practice continues, which you're never going to eradicate, there'll always be those shady salespeople. There is, car salesmen get it, double glazed people get it. Basically, anyone that sells anything, there's probably been something not that clever done in that area at some point. But it's the legacy of that industry, isn't it? Like when people now are looking at double glazing, we got a price on my house for new double glazing because the windows are absolutely knackered, and in my back of my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to get taken here for a lot of money for poor standards, and that's because, we've just reinforced it there. You do have this perception of that industry being renowned for mis-selling, and there's probably still some of that goes on, but actually, that whole double glazing industry is kind of relaxed a little bit. It's not as pressure. Everyone's starting up. Everyone doing it. Like solar is kind of where everyone's starting up, everyone's just doing it now. And it's kind of like, do we want that legacy for the industry to be kind of like, oh yeah, solar, what an absolute rip-off that is? Or do we want to try and kind of educate people? It's mainly customers, because you're always going to get the shady installers. I don't think installers are mis-selling this, or salespeople are mis-selling this through lack of knowing necessarily how the systems work and things. There will be a little bit of that. I think it's more now to go to customers and go, especially in the world of social media where the message can be sent out quite quickly, that look, just take your time with it, don't get pressured into selling anything. MCS have some very strict rules on how these things can be sold and what paperwork you need and cooling off periods and everything like that. And it's kind of not being pressure sold a system that is ultimately based on you generating your own power. It's not based on you having a window, it's based on you generating your own power, storing your own power. It's electric, it can be dangerous, all this other sort of stuff. And that's the same with the heat pump side of things, not getting a system that isn't actually adequate for your home, isn't going to heat your property properly, is going to cost you a fortune on electricity that maybe hasn't been explained to you. All this stuff is so important that it's sold and it's communicated in the right way, because I think people still go for it if they know the potential downsides of a system. They're just making an informed decision to go ahead with it, knowing all the facts. And that only reflects better on you as a company in the long term, even if you lose a sale or two out of it.
Yeah, it's that integrity behind it, isn't it? I think that is really what will set you apart. And unfortunately, there are people out there across heat pumps and solar and batteries and other industries, as you said, that integrity falls to the wayside, pumping numbers, basically, and becomes a box shifting exercise. And even for the salespeople, not even that. They just have to build in that pipeline for the business going forward. And I think you need that integrity and ethics, as speaking as an installer in your own business, because it's no fun running a company just about numbers and sales. I'm in this sector to enjoy what we do and deliver what we believe is good work. It's not about box shifting for us. Obviously, there's larger companies out there who very much will be. They've got a large staff base to keep busy, and maybe they do stretch reality a little bit in that aim and that goal. And I think as consumers, you've really got to do your own homework on that. There is a level of self-accountability in this conversation, but equally, perhaps the industry of things needs to do a better job of explaining that to people, that if something sounds too good to be true, or sounds like you're under pressure to sign a contract on the spot, just think twice and don't be afraid of rolling back a little bit to give yourself that buffer of time. You're not in that much of a rush to have a solar system installed that you need to sign a contract there and then. If someone's only got that price available to you for the 5 minutes in your house, that's a big red flag for me anyway.
Yeah, it is, and it's one of them sales tactics that's been used in a lot of different industries. And your comment there, obviously, about these bigger companies, I do agree. I think one of the issues that can happen when a company grows, like we've gone through growth, it's not, we're not a big company as an installer, but we're growing more than just me kind of trying to do everything, the sales, the installs and all of that. And when you start to delegate some of this stuff, some of these big companies that start off with all the right intentions and probably still have the right intentions, maybe can't necessarily keep up with all of the people in the company to see how they're communicating to customers and all of this. So I'm a firm believer that a lot of these big companies have the right intentions and want to do a good job and want to sell things properly, but they might get caught out by one of their own salespeople that basically to get their numbers, to get their commission, they're maybe not selling it in the right way. They might only last a year or so in that company, but that's the risk when you start delegating a lot of this stuff is kind of there's the chance that you get someone in that maybe doesn't have the same ethics as the company has. And that's one of the terrifying things about hiring new people. And that's the same with, other installers that maybe don't install to your standards. And there's a period of time where to find that out, they're out there actively doing it. And whether or not you have to fix their installs or, go to customers and apologise for the way that the system's been sold, that's all damage on the company. And I think that's one of the real tricky things as a business expands is keeping that all in control. But there's so many great companies out there, so many great installers out there, so many great big companies, small companies, medium-sized companies. But the risk is that you get someone in that maybe has come from a telesales background, can sell, snow to the Eskimos kind of style, but then kind of goes further than you would like them to as a salesperson. And I think that's really hard to manage as a company owner.
Yeah, and speaking about great companies, one of those is our sponsors, and we've got a little short interjection here where we can go and hear about one of their products. Right,
I'm going to take a minute of your time to talk about an exciting product from Proteus, and that is their 3-module 4-pole RCBO. And you've had some experience on this, Mark, haven't you?
Yeah, we've just popped some into the training space we're building for our EV charge points, and they're really handy because they go straight into your traditional spine board without additional enclosure or taking up any extra space than a normal 3-pole MCB would. And you get all pole isolation, so your neutral opens as well. It's type A, and it's even bi-directional, which at a 3-phase level is an absolute game changer. It's a killer product in the Proteus range.
I've had so many experiences where you've had to put another enclosure in and then an RCD above an MCB to try and get around that whole RCD protection, and it's a nightmare. So that is a fantastic product from Proteus. Go and check it out if you have any application for it. Anyway, let's get back to the podcast.
So we're back again in the conversation, having heard all about Proteus. And Sam was just talking about some of the ethics in businesses and how it's not always the company structure and the company that kind of falls to the wayside with that. It can just be an employee that's maybe pushing some of those boundaries to hit a bonus, for example. As these companies scale, it's hard to be abreast of every single employee every single minute of the day. And kind of that's one thing. But I think some of the things that you've been posting about this last week is something entirely different. And we see these adverts, I've seen them, where you're on Instagram or it could be TikTok doom scrolling and the little solar advert will pop up, free solar panels. And it's the same sort of spiel, but a different person saying it. And you think, how the hell does that work? What is this shonky stuff all about? And you've done a little bit of research, I think.
Yeah, I mean, very surface level research. I put a bit of a rant out on my social channels about this sort of stuff and just can't see, because I actually tested it. So I was sick of seeing it. I thought, am I missing a trick here? Have I completely missed this legislation or this grant or something that's come out and has 90 to 99% of the people that I follow missed this as well? Because this could be grant. That would be an awesome episode of the Renewables podcast, wouldn't it? By the way, everybody, you've missed this massive grant where you can offer free solar panels to all your customers and you still get paid, but there isn't a money tree or some sort of fantasy solar panel growing tree. So the advert kind of goes, what's the biggest thing stopping homeowners in the UK from getting solar panels? It isn't the weather. It's actually that they're not aware that they can get free solar panels with this grant available to certain postcodes. And I looked, I thought, here we go. And I kind of ignored it for months, ignored it. I thought, oh, it's peeing me off now. So I basically clicked on it. I thought, well, at least I'll be taking some of their ad revenue away from them. They're not going to sell me anything, but at least, I've cost them £1 or whatever for the click. And so I went on it, filled all the details out, and a company rang me. And I know who the company is, but I'm not going to name them. They rang me and said, "Oh, you've shown an interest in solar panels. Just wondering if we get all your details, and we'll have a look and see how many panels we can fit." And so I gave them some false details, and they said, "Oh yeah, we can. Look like we can get some panels on." I went, "Oh, can I just check? These are the free solar panels, aren't they?" And they're like, "Free solar panels? What do you mean?" I said, "Well, the advert that I clicked on was for free solar panels." Like, "Oh no, we don't have any free solar panels." I was like, "But the advert I clicked on was for free solar panels." I went, "Oh yeah, we don't have any of them available. Are you on benefits?" I said, "No, I'm not on benefits. No." "Oh, I don't think you'll get them then." I said, "But do you ever sell any free solar panels?" Like, "Is that?" "Oh no, but we can sell you some." And I was like, it kind of confirmed my belief that it was just a tactic to get your details. But I was speaking to another installer, which has kind of blown this wide open a little bit. Who said that his friend, and I'll probably follow this up in another podcast because I'm sort of working with him trying to work out what the hell's gone on. His friend has basically had free solar panels fitted on his house. I don't know if it was through one of these adverts or he was approached knocking at the door. I'm yet to find out all the details, but has had free solar panels fitted. And I'm like, was your friend drunk at the time? Like, how has this happened? Like, this isn't a thing. Surely this isn't a thing. And this other installer has said, "Yeah, I know, I told him it was a massive scam, but he just wanted to see how far he could push it. And he pushed it so far that they actually fitted the solar panels and then never asked him to pay for it." So it's kind of like, wow, okay, well, maybe I've got this all wrong. But the thing that reinforced that I think there's something a bit shady going on is that the company that rang me after inquiring through this advert had no idea about these free solar panels. And I was kind of like, well, if the people that are ringing me off the back of this advert don't know about the free solar panels, is this just a lead generation company that are pushing this thing out and then selling the leads to, these installers? And that got me thinking a little bit deeper into thinking, all these lead gen companies that are contacting me, because you get them every day, you get an email or a call trying to sell your leads for solar. And I'm thinking, are they generating these leads from these sorts of sales things? And if I actually accept some of these leads for whatever reason, work gets a bit tight or we're expanding or whatever, and you think, "Oh yeah, we'll get some leads. If you've got them, I'll have them." And I think, am I buying leads from a company that's using these sorts of sales tactics? And am I going to get asked on the phone, or is my team going to get asked on the phone, "Where are my free solar panels?" And up until this conversation with this other installer that seems to have got free solar panels, I'm a little bit like, it was a massive scam. And I still think it is a bit of a scam, but I need to find out more about how this guy got free solar panels. Whether or not there's an invoice in his inbox somewhere that he's just not seen and he's going to have to pay for it at some point, then yes, I will report back when I get a little bit more info on that. But yeah, even without putting the free solar panel thing to a side, you see some really just underhand, what feels like really underhand tactics when these meta ads come up on your feed.
Yeah, there's so many of them in different iterations, but ultimately saying the same thing. And my view on it has always been, and I've done no research, I've not gone to the trouble that you have, and perhaps we should actually, as a renewables podcast community, we should all go and fill these forms in with some bogus addresses and see if we can get some free solar panels somewhere. If enough of us go and do it, one of us might get lucky. But I've always seen that as like lead gen. There's these companies out there that claim to be able to sell you numerous amounts of leads every week. Same as you, Sam, we get those emails and calls all the time. And I think it is just that. They're probably paying like 30 pence to £1 a click from Meta and then selling that to us for maybe 2-3 quid or whatever and creaming the difference off in the middle. And the fact that they qualify that customer as wanting solar panels is maybe all they need to do. They may be riding that line of truth that customer actually wants free solar panels. That's not passing that critical bit of information across to those people who are getting those leads, and the installers who rang you and were like, "What's this guy on about free solar panels?" Yeah. They've got a right strange customer here, but they're not seeing that bigger picture maybe if they've bought that lead in. So it's one of those things, I think, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And maybe this other person's entered into some sort of modern, I don't know, rent-a-roof scheme or something. I don't know if they're still kicking him out. It could be something like that. Or there may be some like local grant for a development that's gone up, new build housing. Sometimes they have a pot of money, don't they, to support other people in the local community who've PV installs. It might be something genuine like that that's happened. It'd be interesting to get to the bottom of that one.
Yeah, it will be, and I will report back when I get some more info on that. Just there, where you were saying about we should maybe all kind of fill out these forms and get, see if we can get some free solar panels. For some reason in my mind, I've just got this image of like a house in like Southport having like 5 installers turn up to fit 3 solar panels to the same address. So if we do that, we're going to have to choose like a different address around the country to see if we can get just these random addresses some free solar panels. But yeah, because none of us are going to use our own address, are they?
No. Might use Magic Mike's, but I won't use mine.
Yeah, we should choose one address and just see if we can get someone some free solar panels. But yeah, on a serious note, it's how you sell any system, heat pumps or anything outside of renewables, I think sets the tone for you as an installer. If you're using tactics to run the line of truth to get people interested and kind of get them over the line before they've really realised what's happening, that's kind of a bit of a reflection on how you've set the company up. Whereas if you're trying to sometimes being too obvious, too truthful, like for your own detriment, like it might cost you some jobs being too truthful to people, that sets your company up in a different light. And I know I've definitely gone more on the truthful side because I've turned people down before, and I'm like, I can't morally sell you a system because your roof is knackered. And I've gone all the way, I've done like a 2-hour journey, it's like a 4-hour round trip, and I'm like, oh, we didn't see that on the photos, what an absolute nightmare. And that's how I've set my company up. And this isn't an advert for my company, but I know there's a lot of installers that ride that line rather than ride the line of kind of the mis-selling is maybe a bit strong, but kind of like you've put kind of right on the line of truth and, potentially being sold the dream. And then actually when the installs happened, they've realised that it maybe doesn't do everything that they thought it was going to do, but it's maybe not everything that they were told it was going to do, but the installer has kind of left that ambiguity in the room so that the customer thinks they've got backup protection, for example, whereas actually some systems have backup protection for if your grid goes down, but others don't, and they've happened to be sold the one that they don't. So it's not necessarily telling people that their system does something that it doesn't do. It's more leaving that ambiguity in the room so that you will let your customer think that the system can do what it can't do, but you've never directly told them that it can. And I think that's where some companies maybe potentially, and some salespeople, because it's not always the companies, but some salespeople ride that line a little bit. Yeah,
there's the murky line, isn't there, that you can kind of justify people sitting on, and that's where you reside as your own company and individual, isn't it? We're very much on the what I would term the right side of that, where I don't want to get involved in a roof that's a bit shonky because I don't want the complaint for the customer in 2 or 3 years that the roof's leaking because the felt's perished or something under an array we fitted. That's just a conversation I don't want, but other companies might be like, we'll put it on that roof because that's what they've asked for, and what happens after that is customer's problem, not mine. You can kind of see where those decisions might be made, and if a customer's asking about backup and don't fully understand it, I think that's maybe overstepping a little bit if you not get backup when you've asked for it. But again, it depends on your view around that. I was just thinking about heat pumps, because I've recently been inquiring, yourself and Dan getting into the world of heat pump installation, about getting one at my house, and I'd seen those adverts when you hit Google up and who's in the local area fitting this stuff, trying to find a good installer, because they seem to be not as common as they should be as an observation. And you end up with these calls coming back to you, you can get your heat pump for free, we just need to come out and do the survey. And they actually sell the survey in the world of heat pumps, quite rightly, because it takes a lot of time. But you might be £300 or £400 expecting you're going to get your heat pump fitted for free with a grant, because that's what they've claimed in their advert. And they come round and charge you for doing that heat loss survey and say, actually, it's another £6,000-7,000 for the system, which is fine if that's what it costs. But the initial advert is very, very misleading. So I think it's quite prevalent from what I've seen as a consumer in the heat pump market space, that it's there as well. And you alluded to that it's across multiple sectors. And I guess with the heat pumps, they do have that grant generally available to everyone. So at least that's maybe an angle of argument for them, that Yeah, well, we kind of assumed it would be free, but after we've looked, it isn't. I bet they know, really.
Yeah, it's interesting about that grant as well, isn't it? Because like the feed-in tariff side of things had this artificial kind of money in it, and this is maybe slightly off topic, but it just got me thinking there where you mentioned it. Like the feed-in tariff side of things, every time the feed-in tariff went down in the solar game, the price for everything went down, and that boiler upgrade scheme grant is £7,500, and it'd be interesting if when that goes, or I think they're on about rejigging it to include more technologies and things. But when that goes or is reduced or is increased, whether or not the kit kind of follows that price, it'd be really interesting to see that, because you can like that extra 6-7 grand or whatever that you would spend on getting that heat pump, whether or not that is actually what it costs, and the boiler upgrade scheme is kind of just not clear profit, because that's not how that works. But the manufacturers of the kit, because that's what happened in solar, are kind of have got this artificially high product price, and they're kind of like, right, we can afford to charge that because the boiler upgrade scheme kind of covers that in most cases. It'd be really interesting to see how that changes as that scheme is either wound down or is wound up, and maybe these things get more expensive because they know that £7,500 of it's been covered anyway, and so therefore people that want it have probably got 5 or 6 grand that they can throw at it. So why not take this extra £7,500 that the boiler upgrade scheme is there? So yeah, just a little thought there where you mentioned it. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out. But in terms of selling them, yeah, it's difficult to get the attention on social media. I mean, most of this stuff is being sold across social media now. Everyone's on their phones all the time. Me and you both do YouTube and all the rest of the stuff. We do this podcast, all these other things. It's all the digital world and digital sales side of things now, and it's difficult to get that attention. And I think telling people you get something for free is, for a lot of people, some people smell a rat straight away when that happens because they've been bitten before, or it's too good to be true. But others, quite rightly, think, this I'm going to explore this a little bit. And before they know it, there's been a reason why they can't get that free system that sounds plausible to them. But they've now got themselves hyped up about getting a heat pump or a solar and battery system. So they're going to just go ahead and spend 5 to 15 grand on a solar or a solar and battery system, because actually they've talked themselves into it during the process of finding out if they are eligible for a free solar PV system, even if they never were going to ever get that anyway.
Yeah, I guess with heat pumps, it might be that a customer's gas boiler has gone faulty and they're looking for the most cost-effective way to get that replaced, and they say, I can have a heat pump for free. You start down that inquiry chain, it actually turns out you need to spend another 4,000 or 5,000 quid or whatever it might be. And you think, I'd have to spend that on a gas boiler anyway, I might as well just go ahead with it. It clearly works. These tactics must work, or they wouldn't do it, would they? If it didn't work and they weren't getting any sales, they wouldn't go through that process. So yeah, it's what you can do about it. I don't think there's anything that can be done about it other than speaking about it, education, trying to get consumers aware of some of these things that do go on. And if a deal sounds too good to be true, it probably is, unless you can find that solar panel shaking tree that this customer's got. Never know, it might exist.
I've been looking, but I can't find it.
Yeah, so it is a challenging one, and I think it kind of crosses so many different sectors and areas, and it certainly put me off, I think, going forward with the heat pump, just because it got so confusing with how this stuff's actually priced. And you made a great point then about the whole cost of it, and those been artificially inflated, because I get those comments on my YouTube videos actually when people ask what does a system cost, and someone will pipe up that, they say there's no VAT on it, but the installers are still charging it. It's still going on that price. They're pocketing that difference. So customers do have those thoughts that they think, it's all right that the government are telling them to sell it VAT free and they're taking it off the actual invoice, but it's still in there. We're still paying it. And I can genuinely say, in the way we price stuff, it's not the case. We'd sell our systems exactly the same price, plus VAT or without the VAT, whatever the rule is. I'm not bothered. I don't see any of that money. But you can understand why a customer would think that. If I didn't know this sector and I was sat there looking at it, I'd probably think the same. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's same as us, and probably a lot of companies watching this, kind of like, if you were to propose a system of 15 grand, it's either 15 grand at 0% bar, or it's 15 grand plus the VAT. It's like that, it's actually better for us if it's plus the VAT.
It's so much better.
Because then we don't have to wait a quarter for that rebate, because we're obviously buying all the equipment with 20% VAT on it, and then we're holding that difference because we're not able to charge that to our customers because it's at 0% VAT. Then we get that back in a rebate in the next quarter. So it'd actually be easier for us to charge the VAT. So it's one of them kind of, again, one of them maybe misconceptions, but I've not had that myself, but it's maybe a little bit more alert to it now. Maybe people do think that happens, but yeah, it's a tricky world. Is the sales thing? No matter what you're doing, trying to stand out, and I think you can't stand out on. I think those sorts of adverts where you're trying to drag people's attention in are fine, but it's whether or not they're dragging people's attention in because you are telling them something that you know to be very close to the line and very close to the wire, to basically let them down, that they're, unfortunately, we've had a look at our system, you're not eligible for the free solar panels. However, we'll offer you a discounted solar PV system because you weren't eligible, and blah, blah, blah. And before they know it, they spent 10 grand that they weren't envisaging selling, in spending. And that's great sales. If you take the moral side of it, that's great sales. And, that's, you're maybe feeding a bigger beast of a company that needs those sales to keep people busy and, all that sort of stuff, pay for the director's Lambo and all of that. But it's one of them where whether or not that's ethically right, that's up to the people that are deciding to do it like that. And there's no judgment from me. I know it's not right for me, but it might be a tactic that other company is happy to employ. But for me, it's not the way. And I think a lot of people listening to this, because a lot of electricians in the domestic market are entering solar and battery, they are taking the same principles that they've ran their little one-man band, two-man band, 10-man band company on, where it's all about connections, it's all about quality of work, it's all about fair price and all of that. A lot of people rely on that to get them work, which ultimately is, in my view, the best way, because you are selling based on your reputation, your ability to actually deliver a job properly and know your stuff. You're delivering on relationships and all the rest of it. You're delivering on really positive messages. You're not delivering on a kind of a bit of a shady advert that might just be too close to the wire, really.
Yeah, you see a lot of these communities spring up where they will sell you methods to become better as a business person. You see those adverts. I can think of one individual in particular, I won't name them, but they're looking for tradespeople to come and learn how to sell. And it's kind of that side of things where you are being more vocal about your abilities and you may be marketing more aggressively and maybe being a bit more shouty. I think that's very different to being underhand and lying. And I'm going to reference somebody who says this a lot on social media. I'm not one for stealing things other people say online, but Neil Bridgman always goes on about the fact if you're taking something up for free, then you are the product. I think for consumers filling those forms in as you did, you became the product then. You were then subsold onto someone else buying that lead. So it's the same with social media accounts. When you think it's free, it is. You're not paying for it, but you are the product. You get those ads fed at you. You have your algorithm adjusted to try and get you to buy stuff. And fundamentally, it's not free because you do click off and go and buy these things. Sometimes that works as well, doesn't it? I think that kind of marketing is fine. It's just it's the lies around it that really bug me. The aggressive sales tactics going door to door, telesales, cold calling, and then these misleading adverts that are just absolute nonsense. And then you end up with consumers confused, not trusting the sector as a whole, as my view was with the heat pump side of things. There might be customers out there who've been totally switched off to having solar PV and battery storage because of that experience. And it's just salespeople muddying that water, and it's really, really frustrating. So I fully understand why you went off and did what you did, and I'm going to do the same as well, actually.
I'll send you the next one I see. But yeah, it's a tricky industry to be in. There's a lot of confusion out there in terms of what solar's about, what batteries are about, what heat pumps are about, all that sort of stuff. So there's that education piece there that a lot of customers look to an installer to provide them the information that they need. And I think a lot of customers are pretty good at getting a bit of a vibe from a from an installer as to whether or not they know their stuff, but that can only be really so deep. So any customers watching this, I'd say just do a little bit of research, just so you can kind of test the waters. Like, just throw a PAS 63100 at them about smoke alarm placement and battery placement and all that sort of stuff, and just see if they just look blank faced and things like that actually show competence of that installer, because you're trusting them with a good chunk of money. You know, commercially it might be hundreds of thousands of pounds, domestically it might be tens of thousands of pounds, and so making sure your installer is able to deliver that product. I've posted something recently that the installer is actually more important than the equipment that you fit, because the installer, no matter if you buy the premium best solar panels, best battery system out there, the installer is the one installing it to manufacturer's instructions, sometimes registering the warranty for it, installing it so that you can claim warranty in the future, are there to support you if something breaks or you just need a bit of help with the app, or there's an update that knackers it up, or all this other sort of stuff. It's your installer that you tend to go to first. And so that installer is actually more important than the equipment that you fit, in my view. And that's the discussion that I'm having more and more with customers, because it's harder and harder to stand out because more people are entering the market, and that's fine. And it's up to like me as a leader of my company to try and work out ways that we stand out and look back at the company and think, well, what do we do really well? And that's what we're leaning into, because we can't be the cheapest.
No, the marketplace is there's an abundance of work out there. It is just trying to get it fairly allocated, I think. And if you're a consumer out there working with a small independent company, is the best way to go. You'll tend to be dealing with someone who's really interested in the industry, loves the job they do. If they're an electrician who's come into the sector, they're not going to be wanting to turn out bad work. You know, we're all geeks for it, fundamentally, proper electricians, that is. There are some in different guises, so be careful on that. But yeah, we are very much passionate about it. You know, we're not the only two people who are passionate about this industry, Sam. There's loads of people who watch this podcast exactly the same. There's plenty of good installers out there. So just do your due diligence. And if you're wanting to have a system specified, you want to really be speaking with someone who's an expert in that field, and the installation team that turn up the same, not a salesperson, not an endless chain of subcontractors where it's just smash and bash and on to the next one. That isn't giving proper value, as you've just described there. That's proper value. You know, this system's going to be on your house 25 years. You want to know that it's safe and serviceable for that time frame.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the key message from kind of this conversation is really, firstly, check up, if you are doing lots of lead generation, check up potentially how those leads are being sold to the customers, and just have a chat with the lead generation company. If you care about it. If you're not too bothered and you think this was just a meaningless topic, which it's fair for you to kind of come to that conclusion, then that's fine. But if you want to try and protect your brand as a company, maybe you're starting off and you're getting some lead generation to get the wheels turning, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That service is there for that, really, and to fill gaps in diaries and that. I'm not against lead generation at all. It's more the fact of making sure that your brand as a company, that might be a fledgling company or it might be a well-established company, isn't being tied to potentially some sales tactics that you're not that happy about. And I think that's something to check up on with the lead generators. Just have a conversation with them. If you're doing some decent money with them, I think you've got the right to know where these leads are coming from and how those adverts are being pushed out there. There's some lead generators that work with you as a company to push your own content out, but then there's other lead generators that are pushing their own content out and then selling you the lead. So there's different types out there. And I think making sure that you've got the one that you are most comfortable with as a company is really important, because ultimately it's you that will end up being at that customer's house, fitting them the system. And off the back of that, if they're not happy how it's been sold because they thought that they were going to get free panels, for example, then ultimately that might have a bit of a backlash on you as an installer as well.
100%. This isn't a bashing of lead gen. There's some really good ones out there. again, I'm not going to name them, but I can think of a fair few who do a really good job. They pay decent rates as well for other companies out there who do lead gen in a different way to then subcontract into contractors rather than pass the leads on as a full sale. So there's some really effective methods there, and it can, as you've said, be useful for you while you're trying to get going and establish yourself and fill slots in your diary when things go a bit quiet. These resources are there. When they're done right, they're absolutely fine. I just think there's a few of those that have stepped over that line, and they should be challenged. And again, it's not really up to us as contractors to keep calling these things out. Maybe I don't know if MCS have any kind of remit over that, or NAPIT or the NIC to do education pieces with consumers about what a proper sales process and expectations should look like. I'm just thinking if someone was offering me like a free car or a free laptop or something, you'd be like, well, there's something in there. There's a hustle in there somewhere in it because it's obvious. But why would solar panels be different? So, yeah. My takeaway is we need to find this solar panel tree. But unless there's anything else you want to add, mate, I'll take us out on this one.
No, I think that's everything. We're giving that a good going over. So yeah, I think I'll report back as I learn more about this free solar panel job.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear the outcome of that. And we'll be sure to cover back into that topic later on. If you've enjoyed this one, don't forget to give us a thumbs up on this episode. Drop your comments in as well. We're always interested to hear what you think of this. If you've got other topics that you'd like us to cover as well, reach out on social media, chuck it in the comments. We're all ears to different topics. And otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.